Predictions and prophecies about the future have been made for centuries. Whether you're a believer in ancient prophecies or a skeptic who considers them little more than coincidences, it's hard to dismiss times where guesswork has come true. For that reason, here is a list of 7 people who correctly predicted the future. Number 7. Jules Gabriel Verne. Known as a novelist, poet, and playwright, Jules Verne is famous for writing Journey to the Center of the Earth, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Around the World in 80 Days. Verne is also famous for accurately predicting the Apollo moon landing. In his short story, From the Earth to the Moon, published in 1865, Verne predicted several details about the Apollo 11 spaceflight. Apollo 11 was the mission that landed the first 2 humans on the moon, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. In his short story, Verne not only wrote that the rocket would launch from Florida, which it did, but also had correctly written about the feeling of weightlessness the astronauts would experience. In reference to Verne's short story, the command module, Columbia, was named after the Columbiad, the spacecraft in Verne's work. Number 6 is John Watkins Jr. Known for little else than being the son of a civil engineer, John Watkins Jr.'s claim to fame comes from an article in Ladies' Home Journal titled What Happens in the Next 100 Years. Among the many claims made in the article, published in 1900, were forecasts of various technological advances that Watkins would have no knowledge of. For example, the internet and satellite television. Man will see around the world. Persons and things of all kinds will be brought within the focus of cameras connected electrically with screens at opposite ends of circuits thousands of miles at a span. This accurate description of the future was an excerpt from the very same article that John wrote. Another internet-related prediction also includes the mention of what we now know as color printers. He said, photographs will be telegraphed from any distance. If there be a battle in China 100 years hence, snapshots of its most striking events will be published in the newspaper an hour later. Photographs will reproduce all of nature's colors. Watkins also predicted X-rays, ultrasounds, and CAT scan technologies, by saying physicians will be able to see and diagnose internal organs of a moving, living body by rays of invisible light. Not all of Watkins' claims turned out to be true, but it is worth noting the predictions that did come to pass over the last 100 years. Number 5. Nikola Tesla. Inventor, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and physicist are only some of the titles held by Nikola Tesla. We can also add the title of futurist. For those who aren't familiar, a futurist is a scientist who attempts to systematically explore predictions and possibilities about the future. In an interview with the New York Times in 1909, Tesla predicted personal wireless devices. In the interview, he stated, "It will soon be possible to transmit wireless messages all over the world so simply that any individual can own and operate his own apparatus." This sounds exactly like the smartphones and tablets that are commonplace today. Number 4 is Alix de Tocqueville. In the 1800s, Alix de Tocqueville was a French diplomat, political scientist, and historian. He was also someone who predicted the Cold War that would emerge out of World War II. In the second volume of his book, Democracy in America, published in 1840, the diplomat wrote of the rivalry between the United States and Russia. He wrote, "There are now 2 great nations in the world which, starting from different points, seem to be advancing towards the same goal, the Russians and the Anglo-Americans. Their point of departure is different and their paths diverse. Nevertheless, each seems called by some secret desire of Providence one day to hold in its hands the destinies of half the world." This, of course, turned out to be true. He also anticipated the American Civil War, citing the bitterness and anger over the abolition of slavery that would tear apart the United States. Alix de Tocqueville died in 1859. The Civil War would start 2 years later in 1861. Number 3. Vangelia Pandiva Dimitrova. Better known as Grandmother Vanga or Baby Vanga, Vangelia Dimitrova was a Bulgarian mystic and clairvoyant that millions of people around the world believe possessed paranormal abilities. Baby Vanga made several predictions throughout her life, ranging from the personal to the global. One such global prophecy is believed to have predicted the terror attacks of September 11th, 2001. In 1989, Baby Vanga said, "Horror, horror, the American brethren will fall after being attacked by the steel birds. The wolves will be howling in a bush, and innocent blood will be gushing." The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York collapsed following terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001. The interpretation of Baby Vanga's words have been taken literally, as the World Trade Center's towers 1 and 2 were known as the twins or the brothers. The steel birds of the prophecy are believed to refer to American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175. The word Bush is believed to relate to the surname of President George W. Bush, who was in office at the time of the attacks. While there are a few holes in this prediction, it is quite interesting, and if it was to be taken literally, it could be interpreted as an accurate prediction. Number 2. Abraham Lincoln. Recollections of Abraham Lincoln, 1847 to 1865, is a biography written by Ward Hill Lemon that contains a recounting of an eerily prophetic nightmare the 16th President of the United States had just 3 days before his death. In Lincoln's own words, he said, "There seemed to be a death-like stillness about me. Then I heard subdued sobs, as if a number of people were weeping. I thought I left my bed and wandered downstairs. There, the silence was broken by the same pitiful sobbing, but the mourners were invisible. Determined to find the cause of a state of things so mysterious and so shocking, I kept on until I arrived at the east room, which I entered. There I met with a sickening surprise. Before me was a catafalque, on which rested a corpse wrapped in funeral vestments. Around it were stationed soldiers who were acting as guards, and there was a throng of people gazing mournfully upon the corpse, whose face was covered, others weeping pitifully. 'Who is dead in the White House?' I demanded one of the soldiers. 'The President,' was his answer. 'He was killed by an assassin.' Then came a loud burst of grief from the crowd, which woke me from my dream." 3 days later, Lincoln was attending Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., where he was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. Number 1. Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev. A Russian chemist from the late 19th century, Mendeleev created a far-sighted version of the periodic table of elements, which he used to correct the properties of some already discovered elements. Not only that, Mendeleev also used his version of the periodic table to predict the properties of 8 elements that were yet to be discovered. The design of his periodic table, created in 1863, took into account the 60 known elements and perfectly predicted the weights and properties of over 40 missing elements. By organizing elements' atomic weight and various properties, Mendeleev started to see patterns. He noted the gaps in the table and predicted elements that would likely fill them. His proposed periodic table identified the potential for new entries. As Mendeleev attempted to classify the elements according to their chemical properties, he noticed patterns that led them to create his periodic table. Later, he would claim that the complete arrangement of the table came to him in a dream. He said, "I saw in a dream a table where all elements fell into place as required. Awakening, I immediately wrote it down on a piece of paper. Only in one place did a correction later seem necessary." Mendeleev's work accurately predicted the qualities of several different new elements, all of which were discovered years after his initial predictions. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button. I'll leave a link down below to some other weird lists that I've made in the past, and if you want to see similar videos to this in the future, don't forget to subscribe. But like I said, that's all for now. As always, until next time.